Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are diving deep into what sounds like, well, a seriously challenging spiritual engineering problem, synthesizing three massive, complex systems: meditation, geometry, specifically the six-pointed star, and the structure of the I Ching into one single unifying pattern.
That's absolutely the core of the source material we're looking at. It really details this practitioner's intense, almost, agonizing search. They called it the existential quandary.
Right.
And the mission essentially was to find the one correct sequence of movement, just one, on that six-pointed star that could somehow govern three totally distinct energetic processes all at once.
And when you look at that geometry, the star, it's two interlacing triangles, right? One pointing up, one down. 6 sides total.
Yeah.
If you think about every single possible way to move your attention across those 6 sides, the math says there are 720 permutations.
720. It's a huge number.
So how do you get from 720 down to just one pattern that feels less like discovery and more like, I don't know, finding some kind of fundamental code? How did they even begin to eliminate 719 possibilities?
Well, it wasn't random guesswork, that's for sure. It was more like forced integration. The key insight was realizing that this single pattern had to satisfy 3 completely non-negotiable requirements. Requirements that already governed existing practices they were using.
So it wasn't arbitrary. It had constraints.
Exactly. If the pattern failed on even one of those factors, it was out, discarded. That's how they narrowed it down.
Okay, let's get into those factors then. What was requirement number 1?
The first one was about hexagram coherence. Basically, the pattern, the sequence of moving along the sides, it needed to let you lay out the A-chain hexagram. That's the kind of fundamental sequence onto the star's 6 sides in a way that made visual sense.
Visual sense. Meaning?
Meaning, line 1 of the hexagram lines up with the first side in the sequence, which should ideally be the bottom, line 2 with the second side, and so on, up to line 6 at the top. Just a clean, logical mapping.
Okay, a structural map. Makes sense. Requirement. 2, then, that involved the body's energy flow.
Yes, exactly. That's the regulation alternation factor. This one's crucial. The pattern had to easily, almost effortlessly, follow the specific left, right, and bottom to top alternation that's inherent in the regulation meditation.
That's the Wurubu meditation.
That's the one, Wurubu. That practice is really designed to, establish and fine-tune your personal energetic flow, your equilibrium.
Okay, so visual structure, then personal body flow. And factor 3 brought in movement and scale from a newer system.
It did. That was the spiraling function. The sequence had to mimic this continuous counterclockwise, and this is important, centrifugal movement.
Centrifugal, meaning outward.
Exactly. Spiraling outward, like ripples on a pond moving away from the center. This specific type of movement is central to the more advanced star body palace practice, which spirals out from the core, often visualized starting from the top of the head.
Wait a second. I'm hitting a wall here.
Yeah.
Because these sound almost contradictory. You need the sort of linear map for the I Ching lines. Then you need this alternating back and forth localized flow for the Wurubu, the left-right thing.
Right.
And you need this huge continuous outward spiral for the star body palace.
Right.
How can one sequence do all 3? It feels like if you satisfy the map and the spiral, you'd break the body's internal left-right alternation, or vice versa.
And that was precisely the existential quandary they described. That's why it was agonizing. Initially, they found patterns where maybe 2 requirements worked, but the third would always fail. The breakthrough, the real insight, came when the practitioner realized that those 2 previously independent alternations,
The left-right and the up-down.
yes, the left-right, which you could call the personal flow, and the up-down, the more collective or perhaps universal movement, they couldn't be treated as separate issues anymore. They had to be addressed together, in tandem, baked into the single 6-line sequence itself.
So they weren't just finding a path on the star. They were basically designing a single algorithm that could manage both layers of regulation at the same time.
That's a great way to put it, exactly. It forced an integrated solution where the structure itself handled multiple, seemingly conflicting variables simultaneously.
Okay, I need to see the solution.
Yeah.
What was the final sequence they landed on? You said it starts with the base of the upward-facing triangle.
That's right. So the sequence goes like this. Line 1 is the base of the upward-facing triangle, the bottom line.
Oh, wait.
Line 2 is the right side of that same upward-facing triangle.
Not the right side.
Then line 3 is the left side of the upward-facing triangle. That completes the journey around the lower upward-pointing triangle.
And structurally, that upward triangle, lines 1 through 3, those represent the lower trigram, right? The earth lines or the sort of lower reality lines of the hexagram.
Correct. Then the pattern shifts focus to the downward-facing triangle for the upper trigram, the heaven lines.
So where does line 4 go?
Line 4 is the left side of the downward-facing triangle.
Okay, crossing over.
Line 5 is the right side of the downward-facing triangle.
Back across the top, right?
And finally, line 6 is the base of the downward-facing triangle, which visually is the highest line on the star, the top boundary.
Got it. Okay, that sequence definitely nails factor 1, the hexagram coherence. Line 1 is bottom, line 6 is top. It maps perfectly. Now, factor 3, the spiral. How does this specific path handle the movement requirement?
Well, this is where the geometry gets really elegant. If you trace that exact path, starting at the bottom, going up the right, across the top left, then top right, and across the very top line, you're basically tracing the outer boundary in a continuous loop. It naturally maintains an unbroken counterclockwise movement. And because you're always moving along the edge, it inherently creates that outward centrifugal push.
So the shape of the path is the spiral. The structure and the required movement are literally one and the same.
Precisely.
Okay, that handles factors 1 and 3. But we still have the trickiest bit, factor 2. Integrating that left, right, and up-down bodily regulation from the Wurubu meditation.
Yeah.
How does this geometric sequence suddenly connect to the body?
Right. This is where the practitioner discovered the really crucial body mapping. It wasn't just imposed. It felt like a discovery, connecting the geometry directly to specific physiological anchors, regulatory points in the body.
Okay, we need to map this out clearly, line by line, especially how it handles that split you mentioned between personal and collective regulation.
Let's do it. Let's focus first on the lower triangle, lines 1, 2, and 3. Remember, these lines correspond to grounding, local reality, personal regulation. The practitioner mapped these to the feet. So line 1, the base of the upper triangle, that corresponds to the left foot.
Left foot, okay.
Line 2, the right side of the upper triangle is the right foot.
Right foot, makes sense, moving right.
And then line 3, the left side of the upper triangle comes back to the left foot.
Left, right, left. Okay, I see it. The feet are handling that necessary left-right alternation.
Yeah.
That's the short range, here and now personal flow. That nails the personal regulatory requirement of Wurubu.
Exactly. Nailed it. Now watch what happens as the pattern shifts to the upper trigram, the downward-facing triangle lines 4, 5, and 6. These correspond to the higher reality lines. These get mapped to the hands. Think about it. The hands are what we use to reach out, to interact, to engage with the broader collective world.
Okay. So the higher lines govern that bigger interaction. Feet ground the personal, hands engage the collective.
You got it. So line 4, the left side of the downward triangle, is mapped to the left hand.
Left hand.
Line 5, the right side of the downward triangle is the right hand.
Right hand.
And line 6, the base of the downward triangle, the very top line, loops back to the left hand.
Left, right, left again, but with the hands. That is, wow, that's incredibly elegant.
Isn't it?
In just 6 steps, you've got the feet establishing the left-right personal regulation, and then the hands take over, handling the sort of upward-outward movement that governs the collective field interaction. The entire Wurubu regulatory flow is integrated into one single geometric pass.
The micro-pattern is solved, and this unified 6-line movement, this sequence, it becomes the fundamental structural key, the operating system, if you like, that unlocks the much larger macroscopic system, the star-body palace.
Okay, so we've cracked the geometry in the microflow. The core pattern works.
Yeah.
How does this structure now expand outwards to become this palace that holds the entire I Ching? And how does the mapping shift from just feet and hands to covering the whole body?
Good question. The star-body palace system essentially takes this pattern and uses it as the navigation tool. It superimposes all 64 I Ching hexagrams onto a really comprehensive anatomical structure.
All 64. In what order?
Specifically following the DNA sequence order. You often see this referenced in systems like human design. It starts with hexagram 25, innocence, and that 6-line sequence we just walked through, that's the fundamental instruction set for how you move through and access the information stored in this body anatomy.
Let's talk architecture then. The sources mention 13 bands. What exactly are these bands?
Yeah, think of the 13 bands like vertical zones or filing cabinet drawers running down the body. They actually correspond, interestingly, both to the 13 signs of the zodiac and to 13 specific body areas.
Which areas?
It goes head, neck, shoulders, chest, heart center, stomach, groin, then the perineum or the base, then thighs, knees, calves, ankles, and finally the feet. So 13 distinct zones stacked vertically.
13 vertical zones. But the information isn't just on the skin, is it?
No.
You mentioned scale earlier. This is where things expand outwards dramatically.
Correct. This is crucial. Each of those 13 bands isn't just a physical strip. It extends outward from the body in layers, almost like concentric spheres or shells expanding out from each band. Each band has 5 sheaths.
5 sheaths per band.
Yes. And these sheaths represent distinct layers or realms of existence, extending centrifugally, remember, outward from the physical core.
Okay, 13 bands times 5 sheaths. That's 65 locations right there, just in the layered structure. The sources also mention a central conduit.
Yeah, the central axis, sometimes called the infinite spine, that's kind of the core channel running through it all. But focusing on the sheaths, let's break down their scale because it's pretty mind-bending.
All right, sheath 1.
Sheath 1 is simple enough. It's the core. It represents the physical body itself, your tissues, organs right here.
Okay, sheath 2.
Sheath 2 is the periphery. Think of it as the immediate energetic boundary just outside your physical form, your skin, and just beyond.
Still pretty close. Now we step outside the physical envelope, right?
Right. Sheath 3 is called the personal world. This layer, the space, is defined as extending about 3 feet out from your body in all directions. So it creates roughly a 6-foot diameter sphere around you.
3 feet out. Okay, that feels like the classic definition of a personal aura or energy field. Can grasp that?
Mm-hmm. That's where your immediate localized reality, your personal energy field, operates. But then, Sheath 4, this is where the source material describes a truly monumental leap in scale.
This is the one that stuck out to me earlier.
Sheath 4 is designated as the collective world, and it extends, get this, 60 miles out from your physical body.
60 miles, not feet.
60 miles, creating a 120-mile diameter energetic field centered right on you.
Wow. Okay, and sheath 5.
Sheath 5 is simply infinity, beyond measure.
Okay, hold on. 60 miles radius. You've gone from 3 feet to 60 miles. That's not just an aura anymore. That's like a regional atmospheric field. How do the sources justify such a massive jump? What's the logic there?
Well, the justification seems tied to the function assigned to that layer. The collective world, Sheath 4, is defined as the space where your awareness interfaces with broader regional information fields, regulatory forces, connecting with the collective consciousness, essentially.
And the unified pattern we found earlier.
That 6-line pattern acts as the structural interface, the mechanism that allows the practitioner's localized body and awareness to actively sense, interact with, and even regulate information within this enormous 60-mile field. It provides the pathways.
Okay, that reframes the entire purpose. It's not just personal regulation. It's potentially regional regulation anchored in your personal structure.
Yeah, precisely. The unified pattern isn't just static geometry, it's the dynamic key. It provides the structural foundation and the operational commands for navigating between these bands and sheaths, retrieving or imprinting information.
What really stands out now is that because they successfully unify that core 6-line pattern, this whole star-body palace structure isn't just theoretical. It actually becomes a usable, potentially accessible memory palace.
A vast memory palace, yes. And we can even quantify the potential information capacity described. Remember, the system incorporates all 64 hexagrams, but it also integrates the information carried by each of their 6 changing lines. Those lines correspond directly to the regulatory steps in our unified pattern.
Right, the lines themselves carry meaning.
So if you consider 64 hexagrams, and each has 6 changing lines that can be activated or store specific nuances, that architecture effectively creates 384 distinct organized compartments or addresses.
64 times 6.
Or 384. 384 distinct informational slots, just based on the hexagrams and lines.
So 384 specific compartments, all navigated and managed by that single 6-line sequence we started with.
Exactly. And this combined system, integrating the Wurubu insights with the star-body palace structure, forms what the sources refer to as a 2-axis body grid.
2-axis? How so?
Well, the distinction they draw is critical. The older Wurubu aspect, the regulation meditation, primarily focuses on anchoring the hexagrams and their regulatory flow onto specific acupuncture points on the physical body. Very precise locations.
Okay. Point-based.
Whereas the newer unified star-body palace aspect uses the broader areas, those 13 bands and 5 sheaths, to spiral the information and awareness dramatically outward. It manages energetic fields that extend far into the collective space and towards infinity. points versus fields almost.
Well, one maps the micro, the other the macro, but using the same core operating system.
That's the essence of it.
Right.
So to kind of recap the core achievement described here, they took three concepts that seem miles apart: geometric movement on a star, the symbolic structure of the I Ching, and specific energetic body regulative techniques, and they managed to fuse them into one single, elegant, functional, six-line solution. And the result, according to the sources, is this incredibly detailed, navigable body grid capable of managing information across both deeply personal and potentially vast regional scales of existence.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty profound question to mull over, doesn't it? If that core six-line pattern really dictates that your personal field of regulation, the left-right balance, is physically anchored to your feet, and your collective field of regulation, the up-down or outward interaction, is mapped to your hands, then what does it actually mean that your layer of collective world awareness, where specific I Ching information like hexagram 21 is actively placed and potentially accessed, does that imply the boundaries of your consciousness, your functional awareness, are vastly larger and less physically constrained than you typically assume?